It goes, "Where's your pig, Nick?"
Welcome to Not My Ghost, Not My Problem.
The paranormal comedy podcast where belief meets skepticism.
We're the podcast that haunts back.
I'm Kelly.
And I'm Jen. And today we are wrapping up our Warren trilogy. Thank the Lord. We are doing a structured overview of their most famous cases and why the stories around them get so messy. And if you listen to parts 1 and 2, you already know the vibes. Once you start pulling on the timeline threads and actually checking the credentials, the whole story just falls apart. This isn't a deep dive on any single case. It is the zoomed out version, what was actually reported, where the details started to drift, and the major red flags that showed up. So grab your notebook, your evidence board, and your strongest side eye, because we're about to separate fact from folklore.
I'm excited. I can't wait. This whole deep dive has been very eye-opening. But first, I have an announcement
Oh, yeah? What's your
um,
announcement?
to all of our ghosties out there. If our ghosties, anyone out there was waiting to get up the nerve to email or DM Jen because she's adorable and she's funny and she's smart, to ask her out on a date, you are too late because Jen is officially off the market.
That I am officially off the market.
I'm excited about this because I've told her several times during this podcast over the last year and a half that eventually she's going to have to leave her house and meet people, and she has.
I did.
Listen, when Jen first moved there, she sat in her apartment. She didn't really have a lot of people she knew in the
No,
apartment complex, and she wasn't dating anybody. And now she's got great friends who I love and love to hang out with when I come down. And everything I know about the new man in Jen's life so far, hearts, I approve. There's been some stuff that has happened, and I think he handled it masterfully. Jen, would you like to tell everybody how you and this gentleman, are we allowed to say his name?
yeah, we can say his name.
Okay, how you and Mike met.
Yeah, so we met on Hinge dating app. Very, very happy to have that deleted off my phone. Um, and we had our first date scheduled for Black Friday. Just something simple, coffee. We were just going to this little coffee place and we were just gonna meet up and, kind of just get to know each other a little bit. And I'm standing in front of the coffee shop, waiting for him because he texted me he was running a couple minutes late. And I see him walking away from his car and he kind of walks up to me. I'm just standing there in front of the coffee shop. He gives me a hug, says hi, and then he says, "Well, this is gonna be a little awkward." And then he proceeds to tell me that he just hit a car while he was parking. And I said, "Oh, what car?" And he said the red one and pointed to my car.
Yep, yep.
So that was our first date. Though the date actually didn't happen, I got his insurance information and then was like, I need to go home and figure this out and do all that, call insurance companies and everything that, be an adult and do all the responsible things. And he was so nice about it. Like, he was so embarrassed. He couldn't believe that it happened. He said that this, now I know more, but he's never been in like an accident, never hit a parked car. Like, this was the first time it ever happened. He was just so nervous to meet me. Apparently, I made him a bad driver. But I once I got home, was able to kind of calm down a little bit and really think things through and, chat with my besties. I decided to give him a second chance, and then we went out and got our actual coffee date the following day.
I have to say, Kristen, the other bestie, and I were immediately like, "This guy gets a date. This guy gets that second chance," because he hit a car, didn't know whose car it was. You didn't see him hit the car.
No.
He coulda just moved his car and parked somewhere else and never said a word about it, but he came up and immediately took responsibility for what he did,
Yes.
and then when he found out it was your car, he didn't turn into some douchebag that's like, "Oh, you were parked too close to the line," or blah, 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 and try to blame it on you. He was under stress, he was embarrassed, and he was kind. He even still gave you a gift that he bought for you, not knowing if you would ever want to see him again,
He
and
did.
Kristen and I were like, "Yeah, this guy's getting a date, Jen.
Yeah.
This guy's getting a date.
Yeah.
A
I
do-over."
I will say, I that day, I think I made the insurance person that I talked to, I think I just made their entire day because, it's Black Friday, day after a holiday, nobody wanted to be working, and I called her and, you have to tell the people what happened and kind of explain the scenario, and I told her what happened and that I was on a first date, and it was the guy who I was there to meet, and she lost it. She just started cracking up laughing. So, I was able to
Mm,
make someone's day.
yep, so that
I
is the story.
I
Oh,
also just wanna point out that while not taking away of how Mike reacted because it was great and mature and how most people, adults, should react, it is a little sad that that is such, like, a high green flag
right.
because
It's just normal, regular adult
yeah,
behavior.
that's just how a normal human should react when they hit someone's car. Um, but that's not how most men would react. So,
That's not how most people, I think, would react. I think most people would have been more upset that it happened and may have escalated the situation, but I, for one, was very happy. So was Kristen. So we
mhm,
were like, "Sorry, but Mike gets a do-over." We the panel has
they
decided.
did. And honestly, you doing what you did and saying what you said in that moment made me give him that second chance because I was,
Well,
I my car is a 2023, so it's a little over 2 years old. Like it's got less than 7,000 miles on it. I don't drive my car anywhere. So to me, my car is still brand new. It's in great condition. And now I'm like, going through my head, like, oh, I'm going to have an accident report and how, all of this crap that goes with it. And I just wasn't even considering giving him a second chance. And then you guys came in and was like, blah, 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 and like pointing out all the good things. And I was like, okay, fine. And I still wasn't really feeling it. But then, the more time I spent with him, the more we hung out, the more I got to know him. I'm very, very happy I gave him a second chance.
yes. Now I know this is airing in February, but we are recording this in January,
Yes.
and I will be heading out next week.
Hmm.
And Jen and I have some fun things planned.
Yes.
But I will get to meet Mike in person.
Yeah.
And once I have made my assessment of him in person, I will pass my information along to Kristen. And then Kristen will do her evaluation. And then
Mhm.
I told Jen that Kristen and I will discuss and get back to her in 10 business days with our final decision. But
So
so
stay tuned
far,
for that, ghosties.
yeah. So far I think this is going to work out pretty well. Also, ghosties, I am not feeling well today. So if I seem a little off or a little less me, I've been dealing with an injury from the gym and it's causing headaches. I'm hoping this relaxes muscles so I can get a little bit more comfortable. But so if I just seem just a little off, that's what's going on.
If her resting bitch face is resting harder than it usually does, you
Mhm.
know why.
I am so conscious of that now, man. Whenever that we're
right?
recording, like, video, I'm like, "Oh, what is my face doing?" Because sometimes, when people are talking and when it's
Oh,
not on video, I'm like,
yeah.
"Yeah." And now it's like, "Oh, hi."
Oh, yeah, I have to be on the whole time and looking cute. So, okay, well, I do have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you think that fear sharpens people's perception, or does it make them misread what's happening?
I think largely it makes people misread the situation.
I
I
agree.
think that the fear makes people a little overreactive to things, and it sparks your imagination, and then you start filling in gaps that you don't really have enough information to fill in.
Yep.
And I think that in those moments, if you can learn to take a deep breath and kinda, like, calm yourself a little bit and reassess the situation, that you probably would have a different perspective of what's going on.
Yeah, I agree, and I feel like too there's that confirmation bias a little bit in
Right.
like a paranormal location when you're told that it's haunted or you're told what things could happen, and then you make that thing happen because that's what you're
Right.
expecting to happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I agree.
Well, good. I'm glad that was a quick answer because y'all know that brevity is not my strong
Oh
suit.
god. This we said the trilogy in the at the top of this, and I can almost
No,
I have not seen the script. I can almost put money on the fact that this is gonna be a
it
four-parter.
is not. It is not. It is not. I promise.
I have to be very quiet during this episode if it's not gonna be, because I know you very well.
And also, for our Patreon bonus episode for the month of February, we are covering two of the Warrens' lesser known cases, cases that a movie was not made about, at least not yet, hopefully never. So if you want to hear those, go join our Patreon.
Please.
Please.
And
Yeah.
even if you don't want to hear those, go join it anyway, because 'cause we're
Yeah.
kind of awesome,
We
and
are. We are up to 8 patrons, so, our community's
8
growing. Come join us. Come hang
we
out.
used to joke that we only had 8 listeners, and now we have 8 patrons on
Yes.
our Patreon page, which means we've got at least 40 listeners.
Yeah, at
Yeah,
least.
at least, which is very exciting for
It
us.
is. Very exciting. All good things. But before we jump in, I just wanna kind of go over how we're gonna do this. So for each case, we're gonna hit the basics, what was reported, how the story shifts depending on who's telling it, and those major red flags that show up when you start checking timelines, documentations, and all of that. Then I'm going to give each case 2 ratings. The first one is a haunting confidence rating. And this is basically how strong the haunting claim is. And this is based on what's publicly documented and what is independently corroborated. Then
Ooh, said that right on the first time.
I did. I was really nervous about it too. I was like, am I
Job.
going to say that word right? And I did.
You know how many times I would've had to say that word?
Pat on my back. I didn't edit that out at all. Pat on the back, Jen. Okay.
That's right, that's right. Do I get to give it a rating too?
Sure, you can if you want.
Okay, awesome.
Then I'm going to do a Warren's credibility rating. How
'Kay.
reliable their involvement looks in that specific case based on consistency, receipts, and whether their version holds up across sources.
'Kay.
Spoiler alert, those are all pretty low.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Okay, first case we are going to jump into, and these are in chronological ish order. There's some overlap, but I tried to go chronologically. So the first case that we are going to talk about is that of Annabelle. You all know Annabelle, the famous haunted doll that sets fires and kills people, apparently.
And is now owned by a comedian,
Yeah.
which leads
Well,
me to
he
believe
doesn't own the doll. He
mm,
is like temporarily, I think it's temporary ownership.
Are you
I don't
sure?
remember what they said, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't own it. I'm pretty sure it's all temporary and he's just like the keeper for now.
So when you have a famous haunted object that can is said to have bring very significant and severe consequences, the
Mhm.
person I want that doll in the hands of is a comedian,
For
definitely.
sure. 100%. Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah. Mhm.
Well, you'll see how much you believe about Annabelle after this.
Well, I was just that alone tells me that the shit we hear about Annabelle is just nonsense. Just the fact alone that it is being owned or kept by Matt Rife.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's all I really need to know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so this took place in East Hartford, Connecticut, and it was in the late 60s to the early 70s. The dates drift depending on who's telling the story because shocker, right? I know you all just jaw drop, right? Dates drift?
What?
That's what? No. So the core claim is that there were two young women, often described as student nurses, and they said that a Raggedy Ann doll started doing activity in their apartment. It allegedly moved around the home, and handwritten notes started to appear on parchment paper. And the recurring theme was they would say, "Help us" or "Help Lou," which we'll get into in a second. This whole story kind of escalated around a male friend, maybe a boyfriend. I don't know. I saw it written both ways. So, in the earliest press account, the man was named Anthony Rossi, and he described experiencing nightmares and later discovering 7 bleeding claw marks after confronting or shaking the doll. Again, some sources say he confronted the doll, some sources said he shook it violently. In later retellings, this man is now referred to as Lou, which is the name mentioned in the notes.
Just
Yeah,
because somebody mentioned the name Lou,
yeah. That makes
that's
more
what we're
sense,
gonna
right?
call
Yeah.
him now.
Yep.
Well, we gotta make it fit.
Absolutely.
How else are we gonna make a movie about it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even though the movie doesn't fit this core claim at all, the movie is completely like it's a young family that gets Annabelle. So, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true, though I forgot about the first one.
Yeah. This group was worried that things were escalating, so they brought in a medium who told them that the doll was being influenced by a human spirit, usually described as a dead little girl named Annabelle Higgins, and that the spirit wanted to stay with them. After that, they contacted the church. And when the Warrens got involved, even their controlled narrative doesn't tell a clean single story because why the fuck would it, right?
Right, but how did the Warrens even get involved in this?
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Okay. So their timeline, and we know on their website, their timeline and the case files usually say completely different things. But their timeline frames it as the Warrens were called in. So somebody reached out to the Warrens. It didn't specify whether it was the church, which we know probably wasn't, or the young nurses or whoever. But the Annabelle case files states that the clergy contacted them, but then later, there are other notes that say that Ed and Lorraine took interest and contacted Donna, who was one of the women, about the doll. So we don't know how they got involved, Kelly.
I'm I say, "What?"
Yeah.
Shock face.
Either way, once the Warrens entered the story, the framing shifted from the spirit of a little girl to a demon.
Of course, of
Of course it
course.
did.
I was gonna say, I have plenty of haunted dolls, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Hey, we wanna stay with you," and I'm like, "Cool, welcome
Cool.
in, these are
Sure.
the
Come on
rules."
in. Hang out.
Yeah.
So, our major red flags, the date drifts. Shocker. Their timeline says that they got the doll in 1968, where their case file pins it to 1970. Then there is the spirit of the dead little girl, Annabelle Higgins, and that's kind of a cornerstone detail of the case. But Skeptical Inquirer couldn't substantiate a matching child death, and that the Annabelle Higgins that they did find was actually an adult woman who died in 1935.
Okay.
Mhm. Then there is this other detail that I think is really weird. In the earliest accounts, they talk about blood, and it's related to the boyfriend or the male friend boyfriend bleeding from the scratch marks that he said the doll gave him after he was attacked. But then in later Warren aligned retellings, a more cinematic claim appears. And they said that red drops or liquid were on the doll itself.
Okay.
So the doll was just bleeding because,
Yeah,
dolls
well,
do,
dolls have blood.
of course.
That's why I don't cut mine.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah.
Then there was a skeptical write up that reports that the Warrens actually contacted a reporter because they wanted publicity. That doesn't completely rule it out. If you have a legit haunting, you might want publicity, but it's just a little detail to add.
I mean, if we had like proof of something, we would want the publicity
Yeah,
for it. Oh, yeah.
yeah. So my haunting confidence on whether or not Annabelle is actually haunted is a 2 out of 5. And here's why.
What? Wait, I was going to
Well,
say
let me tell
again.
you my reasoning because I get into a little bit more detail about some of the stuff I didn't cover up top in my reasoning. Then you can give yours.
Well, why don't I give you mine now and then
Okay.
mine after the rest of the information?
Okay.
Based on the fact that Matt Rife is the keeper of this doll, my confidence is a 1. Go
Okay.
ahead.
What we can actually point to in public record is mostly anecdotal. The doll moving, notes showing up, one guy claiming scratches. There's no publicly released independent documentation or evidence. And in the modern era of Annabelle, the story keeps getting fed by touring and internet folklore. She escaped. She caused a fire. She caused a jailbreak. She's missing. She cursed someone, etc., etc. And then in May, they also say that she, was responsible for Dan Rivera's death, which,
It's ridiculous.
yeah. Reports cite that the coroner said that it was a natural cardiac related event and that the doll wasn't even in the hotel room with him at his time of death.
It reminds me of people that when they hear somebody had a heart attack, they automatically jump to a more recent vaccination that's been out there, and they're like, "Oh,
Mhm.
but he had that shot," and it's like,
Yeah.
as if people don't die of heart attacks or have heart attacks all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only reason I have it as a 2 and not a 1 is because there are other reports of people having experiences around this doll.
Mhm.
Again, nothing hard documented, but
All right, I'll give it a 1.5.
okay. Now the Warrens' credibility is a
1.
1. Yeah.
Yeah.
So their story drifts, dates change, names change, the doll's bleeding, the guy's bleeding, someone's bleeding. Uh, and they've also got the famous story where I think they said it was a priest that mocked the doll and then got into a car accident. Um,
Mhm.
and there's no claim.
Someone's Bleeding would be a great name for a podcast.
Someone's bleeding. Yeah.
Someone's Bleeding.
But there's no, evidence to back that up of anyone getting into a car accident or a motorcycle accident, I think they said a few days later, and dying. So, yeah, we don't
Mhm.
trust them on that one.
Nope.
Nope.
Wine break.
Wine break. And we're back from our wine break.
We are.
And our next case is probably the most well-known Warren case, and this is the Perrin family haunting, the original Conjuring. So this took place in Harrisville, Rhode Island, and it was between 1971 and 1980. So the core claim is that the Perrin family, Roger and Carolyn, plus their 5 daughters, said that not long after they moved in, the house turned into a full spectrum haunting. Apparitions, footsteps, knocking, voices, foul smells, and escalating physical stuff, bruises, being grabbed or touched by unseen hands, and a particular female presence. Now, Warren aligned retellings spotlight the cellar and the heavy atmosphere, plus claims like beds lifting, the heating system failing mysteriously, and a rotting smell that showed up around certain activity. The story's climax, according to the Warren sources, is a seance where Carolyn allegedly becomes possessed, speaks in tongues, and her chair rises off the floor. The movie wants you to believe that the family called in the Warrens. But
No.
the paper trail is a little less clean than that. Warren-controlled sources claim multiple trips to the house over decades. But Andrea Perrin, who is one of the 5 daughters that lived there during the time and has been very vocal about her experiences, said that their involvement was minimal at best. Essentially, one visit, maybe a couple. It did center on the seance, after which the father did not invite them back.
Oh, interesting.
And if you watch the episode of Ghost Brothers, where they go and investigate the Conjuring house, they actually bring Andrea in, and Andrea tells the story that the Warrens basically knocked on their door, showed up, they did a seance. Her and her sister they were all sent away, but her and her sister snuck down and watched from the doorway. And Andrea claims that there was something that happened that the mother did. She didn't say she got possessed, but she was affected by something. And at some point, mysteriously flew across the room.
Okay.
And Andrea then claims that her father attempted to run to her mother to see what had happened, as most husbands probably would if their wife just levitated and flew across the room and wasn't moving. And Ed tried to stop him. So Roger, the father, turned around, punched Ed in the face, and ran over to his wife.
I didn't know that, but I love it.
Me
Yeah,
too.
what are you trying to stop me to get to my fucking wife for, dude? Like, get the fuck out of the way.
And then basically told him, get out and don't ever come back.
I like it. I
Yeah, me
like it a
too.
lot.
Either way, once they're in, the framing shifts again from haunted house to demon because, very on brand for the Warrens.
Yeah, everything has to be scary demons.
Yeah. Now, we have a lot of red flags on this one. And this will be a case that I will eventually do a full-blown episode on because I had to cut a lot out of this. So I'm just trying to go over it really quickly so we can fit everything in. But basically, if you've seen the movie, the Warrens come in and say that the spirit that is haunting the mother and the family is Bathsheba. But
Come
the
on.
record-based version doesn't match the pop culture villain package, right? Bathsheba Sherman was a real person, but skeptical research said she never lived at the Perrin farmhouse, and she actually lived on the Sherman farm about a mile away. So she was in the vicinity. She also did not hang herself from a tree. She died in 1885 at the age of 73 from sudden paralysis, which is commonly known now as a stroke. So, in other words, the witch, Satanist, baby killer who owned the house and killed herself, a storyline is pretty much entirely folklore, kind of glued into history. And it just gets repeated like fact. Also, what pisses me off the most about that is poor Bathsheba's gravestone has been vandalized because of these movies.
That is disgusting. You
Yeah.
people are watching a Hollywood movie
Yeah.
based on a true story does not imply a true story.
It does not.
Mm-mm.
Also, Andrea pointed out that she didn't believe Bathsheba was the entity that was threatening their mother. She thought that it matched another presence that was described in the area, which again, we'll eventually get into when I feel the energy to return to a Warren case because it's going to be a little bit. I'm sorry. Also, a big part of the Conjuring house mythology relies on attaching these dramatic deaths and tragedies on the property. But skeptical investigations have gone point by point and have argued that many of those deaths either didn't happen there or they just got really distorted when you actually check the records. Then you have the quiet decades with the movie spotlight and the monetization red flag. So the parents lived there from 1980, and by 1987, they moved and the house was owned by Norma Sutcliffe. And she lived there for 32 years and did not report a single paranormal experience. Then The Conjuring drops in 2013. The property becomes a paranormal celebrity and the business model shows up. Corey and Jennifer Heisen buy the property in 2019 for about 439,000. They publicly led tours and visits while claiming that they were experiencing activity. And then they sold the house in 2022 for about $1.5 million.
Jeez.
And they sold it to Jacqueline Nunez, who expanded the overnight and tour operation. The red flag isn't that people haven't had experiences, it's that there was just decades of quiet, followed by a massive movie-driven surge in claims and a huge financial upside.
Yeah.
And as many of you, well, you hopefully you know, I don't know, it depends on how much you're into the paranormal world like we are. Currently, Jason Halls from TAPS Ghost Hunters has a GoFundMe up, and by the time this episode comes out, who knows where it'll be, but he is trying
Right.
to purchase the house because it did go on auction, but apparently there's even some drama in that.
Right. But Andrea Perrin had actually reached out
Yes.
and asked if Jason could help save the property,
Yeah.
to keep it accessible to people that want to investigate there without it becoming this big, um, super expensive place. And she also knew that Jason would keep the integrity of the home and her story. So if I have donated to this GoFundMe, we have shared it on our social medias because it is something that we believe in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So as
Mhm.
far as the haunting confidence of this location goes, I'm giving it a 3 out of 5.
Because of Andrea's experiences there, I would I might put it at a 4.
Okay.
Not
I
too
was
much higher because she was a child,
Yes, I
and
was really back and forth, but I did go a little higher, not because there's a ton of proof or evidence, but because in the modern era, this location has had years of repeated on site investigations that have been aired on TV and people have claimed experiences. They've had unexplained noises, movement, weird triggers, shadows. So, one family having experiences is one thing, but a location that kind of keeps generating these reports across different groups is a little bit more legit for me. But I'm also not
right,
ignoring the fact that the house had a 32-year stretch where the long-term owner didn't report any paranormal activity.
right. Well, that's a report, though. That doesn't
That's
mean
true.
there wasn't any activity. It might have just been something that they weren't interested in sharing with the public.
That is
You
true.
don't you never know.
That's why I'm at a 3.
Okay.
Now, the Warrens' credibility, they get a big old 1.
Can we go lower than 1?
I think I did eventually.
Because like, I don't give them, like, any credibility at this
I
point.
know. I I think the next one I went lower and then kind of forgot to go back and change things. So that's what I started with. That's what we're going with. The reason why they get a 1 is because Andrea did say that they were there and that her mother flew across the room during a seance. So
True.
that happened.
That does warrant at least a 1.
Yes, exactly. So it's contradictory on how they got involved. You've got demon labeling that conveniently matches their business model, and a story that gets more cinematic the further it gets from 1971. Yeah. And next, we are going to talk about
Oh,
Amityville.
can I give my ratings now?
Sure.
Um, Haunting confidence,
Mhm.
0. Warren's confidence, -1.
Okay. Perfect. So Amityville happened in Long Island, New York. And I am just very briefly going to touch on it because, again, I want to get through all of this. But if you want to hear more about the Amityville, go back and listen to an episode we released in October of 2024 that talks about the haunting and or the story and the murders and the trial and how it compares to the movie.
Very fascinating, by the way. Jen is very
Yes.
good at her research and pulling out these details. I was blown away by that.
Yeah. Okay, so the dates for this, you had November 13th, 1974. That was the day of the DeFeo murders. If you don't know what that is, then I don't have time to explain it. Go Google Amityville.
People got murdered.
Yeah, lots of people got murdered.
People died.
Yep. And then from December 1975 to January 1976, the Lutz family lived in that house for 28 days. And then on March 6th, 1976, the Warrens came to visit with a group of investigators and held a seance after the Lutz had already left the house. So the core claim is that the Lutz family said after moving into this house that had a mass murder attached to it, they experienced escalating paranormal events for 28 days that they fled and never moved back. Now, whatever you think about this actually being a haunting, go watch the movie if you haven't, because Ryan Reynolds is in it. And I kind of forgot that Ryan Reynolds was in
Yeah.
it. And he plays a great character, slowly losing his mind.
Ryan Reynolds is a phenomenal actor, but that cannot be overshadowed by the fact that he is just pretty to look at.
He's very pretty to look at. And
Yeah.
I went and watched this Halloween again for like the first time in a really long time. And I turned it on and I fucking see Ryan Reynolds. And I'm like, what? Ryan Reynolds is in this?
Yep.
So I was even more excited to watch it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Warrens entered the story after the Lutzes had already fled. They show up for that group investigation, and that includes the media. And this is the single night that becomes the Warren branded Amityville moment that gets repeated and amplified as part of the legend. So, our major red flags is first, Ronald Defoe's attorney, who this is the guy, Ronald is the guy that murdered his family. So, Ronald attorney William Weber went on record saying that the haunting story was essentially constructed over many bottles of wine.
Ah,
Uh-huh.
I have had a lot of wine, primarily on this podcast, or at Jen's house, and I have never constructed a fake paranormal storyline.
Yeah, well, you're not an asshole who just wants to get rich.
I mean, I would like to please have the monies,
Yeah,
but I am not an asshole and I am not willing to lie.
yeah.
Yeah.
My other biggest red flag is, or one of my other biggest red flags is that later residents, many of them, if you want all of the dates and the names and the receipts of that, go back and listen to our episode on it, reported zero paranormal activity. This is not just one family that lives there and that, maybe they just don't notice things or maybe they chalk things up to natural occurrences. This is several families over many, many years Not a single person has reported any paranormal activity in that house since the Lutzes, well, I guess really since the Warrens were there
Right, and if you listen to last week's episode, that we did, which
a couple
is
weeks ago.
oh, a couple weeks ago, sorry. Um, I forget that we record this in advance sometimes. Our first episode of the year, New Year, Same Ghost, the Lutz family did claim that the activity followed them to their new home.
Sure.
Hmm,
Because
that might
they're
have been constructed over more bottles of
more
wine,
bottles of wine. They seem really
right?
trustworthy, right?
Yeah.
Then there is also a backstory about that the Warrens kind of helped construct about it being a burial ground and some guy named John Ketchum that lived there. Um, and it was just, kind of claiming that the land had problems and issues. And they said that John Ketchum was like this occult figure, a witch, a black magician, and he was connected to the property,
Always
but
a witch.
always a witch. God damn it. Witches get such a bad name.
Damn
Um,
witches.
I know.
Some of my
But
favorite people are witches, thank you very much.
thanks, I'm one of them. But when researchers attempt to verify this information against real records, the claims don't line up.
Yeah.
Then there is the ghost boy photo, which is on your screen right now. This gets presented as the smoking gun. But to me, it is the opposite. It is grainy, it is heavily cropped, and it has a very messy chain of custody. The glowing eyes are completely consistent with the normal camera effect, light reflecting off a living person's eyes in low light. And the figure looks exactly like someone peeking around the banister, not a transparent apparition. It was also
Yep.
claimed that one of the, I think it was a cameraman, came forward and said that that was his son, but I couldn't find the actual source confirming that. It was just the sources were all claiming that it was confirmed, but it was never like
Right.
confirmed. So, but as you can see, it does not look like a ghost to me.
Correct, and if you have enough people that are saying that, like, "No, it was the cameraman's son,"
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah. The haunting confidence. I am giving Amityville a big fat 0 because the case just doesn't have evidence. Its core haunting narrative is built on testimony that has been disputed from multiple angles, and the story is saturated with commercial incentives, and key supporting elements collapse under scrutiny.
Yeah.
And the Warrens also get a 0 because I didn't know negatives were allowed.
It's your scale, I mean,
It is.
I'll just give them a 0 if they're not allowed.
Their involvement is after the fact, media adjacent, and doesn't really hold up under any amount of scrutiny.
Correct.
Next, we have the Enfield poltergeists, and this happened in Enfield, England between 1977 and 1979.
Is this the Conjuring 2
Two,
movie?
yes.
Okay.
So basically, you have a single mother named Peggy Hodgson and her children, and they report escalating poltergeist activity in their house. Knocking sounds, objects allegedly moving or being thrown, and a rough male voice, Bill, that was said to speak through the 11-year-old Janet.
Mhm.
This case gained significant attention in the press and drew investigators from the Society for Psychical Research, who documented a large number of reported incidents over a period of time. The Warrens then somehow got involved, and this is one of the clearest examples of movie inflation. The Warrens are often described as showing up only once and not being a central part of the investigation at all. And there is someone named Guy Leon Playfair that is widely quoted as saying they were not invited and actually refused entry when they showed up.
No way.
But the Warrens still did what the Warrens do and said it was a demon.
Yeah. Did they get in? Were they allowed in eventually, or
I did not find any credible sources, but again, this is not a deep dive.
right?
So
Right.
this will probably be another one that we will eventually cover fully
Yeah.
because there's probably a lot more that goes into it. But major red flags. This case isn't maybe it was faked. The investigators caught Janet staging incidents as they did in the
Wow.
movie as well. And Janet later admitted that her and her sister faked some of what was happening. And then
Huh.
I love this moment. There is a moment that was caught on camera in a 1980 TV interview. Someone asked Janet how she feels to be haunted, and she casually says, "It's not haunted." And her sister immediately leans in and whispers, "Shut up."
Gee, that's not suspicious at all.
Kind of just feels like they were saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
Then there is the famous levitation photos that are currently on your screen. And if you're looking at these, they look very staged. These are not, oh my God, she's floating in midair. They look like a kid who was jumping on the bed and someone took a photo. Plain and simple. If you see the images, because I have multiple of them that are playing on the screen right now, if you look at them, you'll see how the I think they were all supposed to be, like, her levitating, but if you look at the sheets on the bed or, like, the blanket, you can see that the blanket keeps moving from picture to picture, which if she was just levitating above her bed, what's making the blanket move? Probably
The
just
ghosts.
her
The
feet
ghosts, Jen.
from jumping.
Right.
Yeah. Also the Bill voice, which is caught on camera or not, I don't know if it's camera or if it was recorded. Again, I didn't dive as deep as I would like to because time. Um, there's a very human explanation for it. So there are some skeptical investigators that argue that the girls were just performing. There are even claims that Janet taught herself how to perform ventriloquism. And then there was actually a ventriloquist, Ray Allen, that assessed the evidence and said that it was very plausible that it could have been done by a
Yeah.
vocal or a diaphragm trick.
Mhm. That is what you said. I think rantriloquist is what you said the first time.
Rantriloquism?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm
That's when
saying,
you
y'all.
run and you project your voice out. Yeah, without
That
moving
sounds
your lips.
that sounds terrible.
Well, just the running part. I don't know about the voice part.
Um,
Yeah.
and then their last red flag that I researched, again, I'm sure there are more, just the witness volume gets oversold, right? Yes, there were a lot of people that were in and out of that house. Some later claimed that they did see things, but the case still suffers from a fundamental issue. The most extraordinary claims weren't reliably captured under controlled conditions. And the psychology of expectation is a real factor in these chaotic environments. So, despite the fact that there were so many witnesses, there is very little evidence.
Yeah.
Mhm. So, my haunting confidence on this one, I'm giving it a 1. And
I
that's
would agree.
generous. That's
I would
generous.
agree.
But the best evidence just doesn't hold up. There are too many indicators of staging, the bed
Actually,
photos, Bill's
after the
voice.
bed photos, I think that's a 0.
Yeah, most of them have, straightforward human explanations. The only reason I'm giving it a 1 is because maybe I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt and maybe something happened And that triggered that, like, "Oh, let's fake a haunting." Like,
I don't know.
maybe they had, like, a mild little ghost that,
The
like, played
sister
around occasionally. I don't know.
the sister leaning in and saying, "Shut up."
Yeah,
That's pretty much
I know. I'm trying to be a little nice. I
okay.
couldn't make them all 0, Kelly.
Right, Warren's credibility, I'm still going -1.
Big fat
Yeah,
0. Um, they're a footnote. They were barely involved, and somehow they took it over, upgraded it from a
right,
poltergeist to a fucking demon, because of course they did, and speak with absolute certainty like they know what the fuck they're talking about.
right. Jen, I feel kinda bad here is, we haven't gone on any tangents this
We
episode.
haven't. You're controlling yourself because you want me to get through this, and we don't wanna do a 4th part.
I just worry, will it be our podcast without a tangent?
I'm sure we'll find a way to fit one in.
I don't know, like, we're getting towards the end here, and maybe there's a couple more cases. We'll see.
I got 3 more cases.
Unless 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 this is in and of itself a tangent about not
Technically, it is.
having a tangent. There we go.
Yeah,
I feel better. I have fulfilled my contractual obligations to tangenting.
perfect.
Please proceed.
Okay. The next case is the Devil Made Me Do It case in Brookfield, Connecticut. And one thought I had while I was doing this research is, damn, the devil really fucking hates Connecticut. Because there's a
You're not
lot of
kidding.
demons in Connecticut.
Right. I
What
wonder
does the
who else
devil
lived
have
up that
against
way.
Connecticut? Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
What does he have against it?
Yeah, I watched a documentary on this and I watched like them interviewing the real people and they were all like, no, I mean this guy just did what he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this happened in between 1980 and 1981. So you have David's episode was reported in 1980, and then you have Alan Bono, who was killed on February 16th, 1981, and the trial was later in 1981. So the core claim is that the Gletzel family said that 11-year-old David began having disturbing episodes after the family started preparing a rental property to move into. They described frightening visions, violent behaviors, and physical marks, bruises, and scratches showing up on David's body. As the story gets retold, the headline becomes David was possessed. And during attempts to help him, the entity allegedly transferred into Debbie Glatzel's boyfriend, Arnie Johnson, who later killed their landlord, Alan Bono. So
Totally.
the Warrens, the Warrens reportedly did get involved in this case very early, again, in their backyard, because all the demons
Right.
are apparently. They were roughly involved within 2 weeks of the family moving into that rental. And then this part matters, but there are multiple summaries that report that the day after the killing, Lorraine Warren contacted police and framed the crime as demonic possession, which helped ignite the demon murder media cycle that surrounded the case.
Can you imagine that happening today?
No,
Just somebody calling and being like, yeah, it was demons.
it was a demon. He's possessed.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like if this showed up on a headline today, it's not any less believable than half the other shit we're reading in our news headlines today.
Yeah. I tell you what, if demonic possession is real, it might explain a lot.
Right? There are a few people out there that I might claim that are possessed by demons. Wouldn't surprise me.
If again, if demon possession is a real thing, maybe I'll call a news station and just
Yeah,
report that it's demons.
that makes sense.
Sure.
There we go. We went off on another tangent. You
Nope,
getting your
there we go.
tangent pill?
The demon tangent.
Demon
I feel
tangent.
better.
Okay, so major red flags around this case is David's brother, Carl, has stated that the Warrens effectively fed the family a script, describing what a possessed kid would do in front of David,
Okay.
and that David's behavior would sometimes just stop when their father entered the room and told him to stop. Because, demons listen to your father, right?
Sure. I guess depends on the demon.
Right. I guess this demon respected this guy's father. Makes sense.
Sure.
Mhm. Coral also alleges that the mother put Sominex, a sleeping aid, in the family's food. I couldn't really find out why. Again, this is not a deep dive. Maybe one day. But that
That's weird.
could explain some of the symptoms. Again, this is an allegation, not a proven fact. I read it in passing and thought it would be a flag to include.
Okay.
Um, and then you have the whole possession narrative, right? It went public, but the court didn't treat it as a legal defense, thankfully.
They didn't actually go on trial?
No, they did, but they didn't like take any. They didn't take this into account in said trial.
Yeah, it's just I feel like a lot of times when people do bad things, they blame it on the devil.
Yeah.
That's pretty common, so
Yes. So I am giving this a 1 on the haunting scale. And I just feel like this is just one of those cases where public facing evidence is overwhelmingly just a story, right? There's no documentation. We have repeated claims, marks on a child, frightening behavior, something in a house, but it's not backed by any clean or independent proof that has been released to the public.
right.
And then you have the fact that Carl came forward, who's a close, family member involved in the case, and basically just said, yeah, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Warren credibility, I'm back to 0 on them. Uh, this falls apart under any type of scrutiny at all. The Warrens version depends on when untestable claims. You have the possession framing that was pushed into the public narrative immediately after a homicide. And the loudest counter voice is coming from inside the family saying, nope, this was shaped and sold.
I still give them a -1,
Okay.
of Warren's confidence, and these views are the views of Jen and I here at Not My Ghost, Not My Problem, so
Yes, they are.
there are opinions.
Opinions. They're like assholes. Everyone has one.
Right.
And next we have the Smurl haunting. And this was the most recent Conjuring, Conjuring 5, that just came out last year. Now, this did happen in West Pittston, Pennsylvania. So,
Ooh,
they're
we're
stepping
going a
outside
little
of
south
Connecticut.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And this started from the dates kind of range between 1973 into the late 1980s. So the family's move-in is commonly cited in 1973, but some sources do shift it by a year. But the big public blow-up happens in 1986, and the family then later leaves the property.
Okay.
So the core claim is that the Smurls said that their duplex started with some smaller disturbances that eventually escalated into full demonic infestation. Loud knocks and bangs, foul smells, lights and doors acting up, objects moving, and eventually more extreme claims like physical attacks. When the story hit the national press in 1986, the reported details got very cinematic very fast.
What?
Pig grunts, hoofbeats, screams, ghostly lights moving through rooms, and the TV set shooting across the room. Now, y'all,
Have you
this was
have you
in the.
ever no, have you ever seen the movie The Pope's Exorcist?
No.
First of all, phenomenal movie. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought I was watching a movie about a true thing though, and it quickly became evident that this was not true. But there is in a moment in the beginning of the movie, a priest named Nick casts a demon into a pig and then they kill the pig. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Now, demons being cast into pigs is also like a biblical reference as well. So later on, this demon kind of comes back around in Nick's life and he's doing an exorcism on a person. And there is a moment in the movie, this is a complete tangent, but it just made me think when you said pig noises, where the demon is talking to Nick and it goes, "Where's your pig, Nick?" And we laughed so hard and I watched this movie like 2 years ago. We still quote it often in our home.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just thought I'd let you all know.
Thanks.
But
Thanks for
please watch that movie.
interrupting.
No problem. It is my job. It is my co-hostly duties. And I'm here for you, babe.
I know,
Please
but I
watch
was
the
about
movie.
to
It's
make a
great.
funny, like, callback to TV flying across the room, and you interrupted me.
Oh, well, that's kind of my job though, is to interrupt you.
I guess. Anyway, I was gonna say that this happened in the late 18 or night 18, the late 1800s. I don't even think there
When
were
they
TV.
had all those TVs.
This happened in the late 1980s.
Mhm.
And for those of you who are old enough, the TVs were much bigger and heavier than they are nowadays. So one flying across the room is quite the claim.
It really is, because these things were massive. They
Massive.
weren't even just like a screen like we
No,
have now. They were like a whole think of a size of a large entertainment center. That was the entire TV.
bigger than that. Because when I think of an entertainment center, it's tall,
No,
but it's not very wide.
an old school large entertainment center.
Oh, okay.
The big
I'm
one, yeah.
I'm trying to make modern day references for our younger crowd.
Oh, for the younger crowd, think of 4 modern day entertainment centers and add about 50 pounds to each of them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Very heavy.
yeah.
That was a strong demon. That demon did not skip out on arm day,
Well, I mean, in all fairness, if it was a demon, I guess it would have power behind it, but
I guess. Okay, so the Smurls invited Ed and Lorraine Warren to the house in January 1986, and again in August of 1986. Now, I did try to dig in because we know how the Warrens like to claim they were invited. By all accounts that I could find in my limited research that I did, it does actually sound like they were invited to this
okay.
one. But the skeptical reporting suggests that the family went public with the story after the Warrens became involved because, of course, they fucking did.
Of course.
And once the Warrens got involved, the story went from a typical haunted house story to
Oh, cool.
a
To a demon.
demon. You're smart, Kelly.
Thank
There
you.
is there is nothing that would have given you any type of clue that
Mm-mm.
that is how it
No,
went.
that was all
Nope,
from this big brain right here.
it is completely.
Yeah.
Major red flags. So the early press coverage suggests that there were strange going ons, and they began about 18 months earlier, but later accounts extended it to 5 years earlier. So, some more timeline shifts. And that's kind of a big 18 months, 5 years. That's a big jump in time to
It
get
is.
wrong.
It's a big gap. Yeah.
Yeah. Skeptical investigators attempted to gain access for an on-site investigation, but were denied entry.
Interesting.
Yeah. Reports also described that exorcisms were performed by a former Catholic priest that was connected to the Warrens, with questions raised about whether or not it was a formal church sanctioned exorcist, which it probably wasn't.
Not if it was a former priest, it wasn't
Yeah.
a church sanctioned thing.
Yep.
Unless it depends on what they mean by former priest. Like, do they mean like retired priest or a defrocked priest?
I'm not
Um,
sure.
yeah.
No. And then the public record is overwhelmingly testimony and retellings with no documentation because why would there be?
Right,
The Warrens trust us. We're
right.
we're trustworthy.
Trust me, bro.
Yeah, that works.
It does on
Uh,
online these days. It's a lot of people's
yeah,
source that they cite for wild claims.
wild. Yeah, this case just kind of quickly became a packaged product. There was a book deal, dramatizations, just recently a movie. And that doesn't automatically make it fake, but it does create incentive for escalation. So I'm giving this 2 out of 5 on my haunting confidence.
I
So
would
it's
agree
a
with that because they did call the Warrens, and they probably didn't know what we know about the Warrens back
oh,
then.
absolutely, yeah.
So the fact that they reached out to the Warrens leads me to believe that they believed they were experiencing something demonic.
Absolutely, and that's why I
Yeah.
went to it was back and forth between a 2 and a 3, but there's
Yeah,
there's just no evidence, right? Like, come on, by the 1980s, like, I know our technology was still wasn't great, but there were video cameras.
right.
My parents got married in 1986, and they filmed their entire wedding reception, and I've watched
Yeah,
it, so I know for a fact that video cameras existed back then.
they did. They were about
Yes.
this big, but they did in fact, exist.
Yeah. If someone can carry that around my parents' wedding reception, filming a bunch of drunk people dancing, then someone could have set it up at this house to film some demons.
Is so in the movie, they talk about a haunted mirror. Is that, like, accurate, do you think?
Not that I saw, but again, I didn't dive really deep.
Okay.
These were kind of just overviews and just kind of looking at what are the big red flags were. So, but
Yeah,
this
because
would
I
be another one
remember
I'd like to dive into.
I remember when we went to the Haunted Objects Museum in Gettysburg, they had a mirror there that was covered that they said Ed and Lorraine Warren covered because they believe that mirrors are portals, and, there is also in that Haunted Objects Museum a rocking chair that they call the demon chair,
Ooh.
and they had to put something in front of the demon chair to stop it because it would rock itself towards that mirror. They
Oh,
had to put a physical barrier there so
can you
it
sit
could
in
not
the
move
demon chair?
itself. No, mm-mm.
I kind of
You're
want to
not
sit in the
supposed
demon
to.
chair.
There's only a couple things there that you're allowed to touch,
Oh, okay.
but you're not really allowed to touch anything else.
Okay. The Warrens' credibility gets a 1 out of 5 because the Skeptical Records paints the Warrens as story shapers, helping steer
Story shitters.
story shitters.
It
Yeah,
sounded like you were gonna say story shitters, and I think that that's pretty accurate, Jen.
that is pretty accurate. But they help to steer the case into the press, framing it as
Demonic.
demonic, and they controlled access, denying people, access to the house to investigate. This pattern matters, especially when, like I said, independent investigators weren't able to get access to it.
I'm still giving them I'll give them a 0 this time. We'll go up to
Okay.
a 0.
Okay. Next, we have the Snedeker family. That's how you say that, right?
Snedeker, I guess.
Snedeker?
Snedeker? Snedeker?
Snedeker? Snedeker? I don't know. It's been a
One
while
of the
since I've
2.
seen the movie. Yeah. And this
You wait.
happened in,
Oh, this is the Connecticut one.
yes, say
I
that.
just said this was the Connecticut one,
They're
as
all the
if.
Connecticut one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This happened in Southington, Connecticut, and it is known as The Haunting in Connecticut, the movie, which we also did a deeper dive into back in October 2024. So go listen to it because we're just going to briefly touch on it.
We did, and I did research on that, and, like, I did the research of what the family actually reported,
Yeah.
and then also what the movie shows. There was the
Yes.
story behind the movie, so
Yep. So this was roughly June 1986 is when the family moved in, and it reports stretched for about 2 years. So the family rented a big house closer to medical care for their oldest son, Philip. The home had previously operated as a funeral home, and the family said that after moving in, the house produced escalating activity, apparitions, noises, odors, and physical assaults. Then you have the Warrens. Um, sorry, I'm just oh, yeah. The Warrens enter. Um, so this person named Joe Nickel, who is a prominent skeptical investigator and a writer for the Committee of Skeptical Inquiry, reported that the family brought in Ed and Lorraine, who framed the situation as
Demonic?
demonic. Yay, ding, ding,
Oh,
ding. You were correct. Along with additional psychic researchers that also came in. And they remained in the house for weeks. So, our biggest red flags, lack of evidence, kind of a recurring red flag. So, you have this guy named Ray Garden, and he was the author that was hired to write the true story book. And he later said that he could not get consistent accounts from the family and was repeatedly promised video evidence that just, never materialized
from the family or from the Warrens?
from the Warrens.
Okay.
Yeah. Then there was, the commercial incentives. Nickel reports that the book deal was in motion very, very quickly, despite some public denials, and that Carmen Snedeker, I don't know how to say the last name, who was the mother and the main spokesperson in this family, told a neighbor that they were going to receive a share of the profits.
Well, I mean, it would have been their lie, I guess, if they did make it up. I don't know if they did, but if they did, it
Oh.
would be their story that somebody else was writing about, so
It just seems really quick to me on how quickly the book deal happened. Like, you would think
Right.
book deals, movie deals, usually that happens, like, years after the fact, like,
Mhm.
not as things are still ongoing, right?
Right.
Um, and then you have the exorcism claims that don't match the official record. There are reports that note that while the family described priest and exorcism involvement, the local archdiocese said there was never a authorized exorcism conducted at the house.
Because, again, the exorcisms that these people were doing were not real, true exorcisms sanctioned by the Catholic Church. Because a real priest that has the rite of exorcism given to him by a bishop would have been the only ones authorized to perform those rites.
Yep. So my haunting confidence of this gets a 1. This case does have a lot of story, but very little stands up as independently verifiable, right?
Mm.
You have a highly suggestive setting, old funeral home,
Right.
major financial incentives really early, and a true story author on record stating that the accounts didn't match up and the promised evidence never materialized.
Yeah.
Warren credibility, big fat old 0.
Yep.
When you combine the profit and publicity trail, the hired author openly saying that the stories didn't line up, and the constant "we have videotape" talk when no videotapes were ever produced, it's hard to call it investigation. It reads like a story that was built and sold.
I agree.
Yep. And that brings us to the end of this deep dive on the Warrens series.
We did it.
We did it. In part one,
Did I
Kelly's,
mention that injury I had from the gym?
Kelly's over here hurting herself.
That really hurt.
She was just so excited to be done with the fucking Warrens. Me too.
Yes.
In part one, we examined the origin story and the timeline that didn't quite align. In part two, we dug into the credibility layer, what gets repeated like credentials, and what gets presented like proof, but never shows up when you go to look for it.
Right.
And today, we zoomed out across the biggest cases to see the pattern. The stories get cleaner, scarier, and more cinematic over time. While the documentation stays thin or non existent, the details drift, and the same horror beats keep getting recycled. The Warrens don't read like careful investigators. They read like people who show up, take control of the narrative, and then tell you to trust them, while their proof stays conveniently out of reach. And when something doesn't fit, the story doesn't get corrected, it gets rebranded. We're not saying that weird things didn't happen. We're saying that the Warrens are not a reliable lens for those weird things. And as far as the Warrens go, the myth is stronger than the record. And we're done treating their version like canon.
Definitely. If you enjoyed hanging out with us today, please consider leaving us a rating, a review, a comment. Be nice, please.
Please
Please.
follow us on Instagram and TikTok at notmyghostpodcast for more chaos, because
Yep.
you know you want more chaos.
Of course you do. And if you want even more chaos than that, and you want bonus episodes
And more about the Warrens.
and more about the Warrens, please consider joining our ghosty community at patreon.com/notmyghost, notmyproblem.
And if you have ever had a creepy encounter, you can send it to us at notmyghostpodcast@gmail.com, and you might get to hear us and Joel react to it on a future Paranormal Postcards episode.
And you want that.
You do.
You definitely want that. And if you want to actually see us reacting to all of the spooky nonsense, you can watch the whole thing right here on YouTube. Please go subscribe and drop us a comment so we know that we are not screaming into the void.
Please and thank you. Well, thank you for joining us on this twisty, deep dive through the Warren world and the cases that built the legend. As you wander through your next haunted headline, keep this in mind.
If it's not your ghost,
It's not your problem.
until next time, stay spooky.
And stay skeptical.